All right, so we're live here, and just got done with a run over here. It's kind of a nice night out. There's a baseball field right over there, and anyways, I just kind of wanted to talk about something that I keep seeing from different people, and there's a lot of people that talk about how to sing a high note, how to do it the right way, how to do it the wrong way, or what it might be. Well, the truth is that it's simply just a sound. That's all that it is. You're just creating a sound. You're not really doing anything else. And so there's no real right or wrong way to sing. Now, from a health standpoint, there might be. From a belting standpoint, there might be sounds that clearly create more volume, clearly are more of a belt-yelled sound. I think these things are all true. But which one's right? You know, what is the right sound? What is the right technique? And so I think that when it comes down to it, you could ask yourself, well, what's the right technique for singing rock music? Okay, what's the right technique for singing opera? You know, very similar techniques. Rock singers and opera singers are actually in very similar spots, despite what people might believe. They're both belting, they're both yelling pretty hard. Although not as hard as you might think. We gotta cross the street right here. And so it's kind of an interesting thing to think about what the right technique would be. And so you just continuously drop down. That's what I'm doing right here. I'm just dropping down through subcategories. And so you've got, what is the right technique? Okay. And you can clearly see that there is no right technique because it all depends on what you're trying to do. Okay. So you're like, okay, so what are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to sing rock. Okay. Are you trying to sing like a baritone? Are you trying to sing like a tenor? What's your voice do? There really isn't necessarily a right technique to sing. But there are certainly techniques that I think sound better than others. And I'm just going to go into what I think those are. And that kind of seems to be something that transpires to every single genre, pretty much anywhere. And this seems to be just a universal facts about what actually sounds good to people. And sorry for it being so dark over here. There's no street lights in this particular part of the street. There's the house light over there. But essentially what I found is that the more resonant the tone, the better it is. Now I say resonant because I'm specifically talking about there being more sound, a bigger sound. The better people seem to be. So if you compare like Pavarotti, for example, okay, so Pavarotti to say Luther Vandross, okay, both had pretty big voices. Then you could compare them to say Chris Cornell or even like an Eddie Vedder or some of these guys, and those are my two favorite singers, at least some of them. I mean, I love all the 90s guys, to be honest. But you could compare them and you could say, well, they're the best singers because they have the big tone. But then you get somebody like Jeff Buckley and you're like, well, none of those guys can do what he does, and we're talking for like the genre of music. And you could say that Jeff Buckley is actually singing in a rock style because he's using more of the pharyngeal voice. But he's not exactly a rock singer. He sings a little bit softer than the typical rock singer, which was kind of cool. He had a way of expressing aggression and kind of this, adding something that was a bit uneasy on the notes with his guitar and with his voice that kind of still made it a little bit more 90s rock than a lot of other things that he was doing, than a lot of other things that other people were doing. So like Alice in Chains, I feel like he kind of took what Alice in Chains was doing and took that a little bit further, where you're playing stuff that's, say, not as fast in terms of just this pounding thrash metal aggression. You're now taking it and you're really just kind of diving into the way that you would feel about something, and maybe removing aggression completely and using other negative emotions and combining them with positive emotions, which he was certainly doing. And so it was interesting. It was very interesting what he did. But the truth of the matter is that there is no one way to sing. There is no one way that's right to sing. But I'll say this. You're going to start with a genre of music, okay? Then you're going to go towards the health factors of the music. Then you're going to go towards the singability, okay? So if you're singing in a way that's harmful to your voice, you're just not going to last, so then that sound's not going to work. If you're singing in a way that's going to be detrimental to the pitch, detrimental to just being able to deliver the notes, then you're not going to be able to do it. And, well, one second here. Pass these guys here. So, it really comes down to the functionality of the voice. And so when it comes to rock singing, I always like to think that there are different dynamics. So you're going to have a soft dynamic, okay? You're going to have a loud dynamic, and then you're going to have something that's kind of like the core resonance of what it is that you do. Like, so for example, the kind of vibrato and the kind of deep tone that Eddie Vedder would sing with, Jeremy spoken class today. Okay, like that type of shit. You know, that's his core sound, and then, oh, you know, he would get into that kind of a sound with the vocal fry and the chest voice, which he's better at doing that than I am. But that was how he would get the intensity in the upper register, and so he was able to build a lot of contrast with the sound, and that was kind of a cool thing. And it wasn't that his voice was impossibly hard to do. I mean, you had tons and tons and tons and tons of terrible rip-offs of Eddie Vedder all throughout the post-grunge movement. And in fact, it almost felt like every singer was trying to be Eddie Vedder because that was the easiest sound to imitate. But even then, I feel like Eddie Vedder, out of all the guys, even Scott Stapp and some of these guys that were great singers, I feel like Eddie Vedder still did it better. And I don't know if that's just that Eddie Vedder did it first and kind of was able to really manipulate the sound and create it and turn it into something. I'm not really sure. It could have been a better band as well. Pearl Jam's a really good band. And that's kind of interesting to think about. But I think that there's two fundamentals. And so I was talking about the bigger tone. You know, that's something that a lot of people would say makes the great voice. Well, there's two fundamentals that I've found that seem to make a great voice. It's the space in the throat. Okay, so having a lot of space, a lot of acoustical space in the throat. Okay, and if you check out my video series, The Elements of Singing, you would know exactly what I was talking about in terms of that. That's going to be the space, the open throat technique. Okay, and then it's also the thinning of the chords. And so you want to have a thin chordal structure with the voice, okay, while you still have a lot of space. And so there's a picture that you should look up. There's a book by Eduardo Cesare. Don't ask me how to spell that. The book is called The Voice of the Mind. You can find it just off of that. And on the front cover of the book, it exemplifies exactly that. There's a pyramid going up, and then there's a pyramid going down. So it's like an inverted pyramid. And a lot of people would say that, oh, that's some occult stuff, that's some alchemy, or the Jewish star or whatever. Nonsense. He's just simply showing the thinning of the vocal cords as you increase pitch, and the deepening of the acoustics as you also increase pitch and the vocal cords stretch, because you need more space for the cords to stretch. And so that's essentially it. I mean, that's what I've found with every single great vocalist. They all use that specific technique. Now, this goes back to the old days in opera. Okay, it's nothing new. Even back then, that was the best way to sing. Okay, the pharyngeal voice is going to give you the tone. Remember, the pharyngeal voice is the thin. That's going to give you the great tone you're trying to get, and then you simply just shift the voice back very, very slightly, and that's going to allow you to start modifying the vowels, okay, towards an But also, the way that I do it is I actually start leaning forward on the sound. It's kind of a weird thing. It's like I'm envisioning like right there. It's like I'm like actually pushing into it a little bit and forward, even more into the mask, because you need to get that mask in there when you're doing that. And I would demonstrate all this stuff to you, but I'm out walking around, and it's getting kind of late at night, so I can't do too much. But it's one of those things where if I don't thin the voice out and I start trying to make the sound bigger at the top, it's going to start to get either woofy, it's going to get too big and the voice is going to crack. I'm going to start straining on the voice. I'm going to start having to pull chest and start screaming. So all of these things are things that go back to the very fundamentals that we were talking about. Is the sound even useful? Can you even sing with it? So you're asking yourself, well, can I sustain a pitch with it? Is the tone something that's a good tone? Is it a pure tone? And if all these things are no's, then you're not going to have much control over it. You're not going to be really able to sing with it. And so those are all the things that I think about when I'm getting a new singer coming in. I try to think about whether or not they're somebody who has a big voice, somebody who has a small voice, you know, because they can all be cool. It doesn't have to be, you know, this huge screaming rocker like I don't know, M Shadows or, you know, Chris Cornell or some of these guys, or David Draymond. It doesn't have to be that. Sometimes it can be cool to be a bit of a softer singer. If they just don't have that power behind the voice, maybe not yet at least, then that can be a better situation to go with. Or if they just can't scream. A lot of students I get, they come in and they just struggle with screaming, no matter how many different ways that I approach it, trying to get them into the gravel or into any of that stuff. They just struggle with it, and so that can be kind of tough. But you know, generally speaking, after about 6 months to a year, they tend to get into it pretty well. It just takes some time, because it is kind of a weird sound to do with the voice. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. Just doing a live stream for shits and giggles. I'll probably do another one tonight because I'm bored. I'm going to go back to my car here in a second. Maybe I'll do some singing there. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Anything else I want to talk about with this? Nope, that's probably it. I'll end this thing.